Hello, everybody. My name is Ray. Welcome to the Evangelical Dark Web. Today, I wanted to give the subscribers an update on my ambitions politically because I ran for political office locally and I wanted to do a video on how exactly that turned out. So, here goes. If you've been following this channel this year in 2022, you may have heard me make reference to this in passing that I've been running for a county commissioner position locally where I live in Maryland. And I have posted one video of me at a speaking event that I did for the campaign. So I have done some content on this, but I haven't really done a whole sit down and talk, so to speak, with my own subscribers and audience. So I figured now's a good time to do that, especially since last week it basically took me off. I only did one video the entirety of last week, largely because of the campaign, also because it was slightly slow news week. But anyway, we are back full throttle, and I wanted to do a quick update on this and also talk about what's going to happen next for the Evangelical Dark Web, its channel. So let's talk about the campaign. I'm going to be blunt about it. I did not win. So it was a crowded field, and I finished second out of 5 candidates. I got about 27% of the vote. The winner got upper 40s. And just as a caveat for why I'm being vague with the percentages is that Maryland elections are a joke. The Maryland gubernatorial primaries are not fully counted yet because in Maryland, today's the 26th. So on the 27th, I believe they count the provisional ballots. And then on the 29th, they're going to do their second counting of the mail-in ballots. So they haven't completed the mail-in ballot counting yet. And that mail-in ballot is dropping me like a rock because I did not do good on the mail-in ballots whatsoever because that's where a lot of the liberals voted, the liberal Republicans, that is. They voted via mail-in ballot. And it shows. Like, I'm looking at top ballot results, and it shows that, a lot of liberal Republicans were more likely to vote via mail. So with that said, I did decently on early voting. I did not do as well as I had liked on game day, and largely the reason for that was the low turnout. Like, you would think that in this election environment, in this red wave year, you would have seen more enthusiasm, especially as it relates to the heated primary election in the state of Maryland between Trump-backed Dan Cox and Larry Hogan-backed Kelly Scholes. It was kind of a conservative versus rhino proxy war between Trump and Hogan, as well as Dan Cox is a legitimate conservative. Dan Cox actually fought lockdowns in the state of Maryland from day one. So he was a conservative that did not put conservatism aside because it was politically unpopular during March of 2020. He fought lockdowns from day one. He's a based Christian conservative, and he ended up endorsing my campaign. So Dan Cox would endorse my campaign. Dan Cox would win the Maryland gubernatorial primary. He would even win, so far, Carroll County, Maryland, where I was running. He would win the county. As well as Michael Perotka would win the Attorney General's primary election race as well. Michael Perotka keynoted my first campaign event. Michael Perotka was a keynote speaker for that. And Dan Cox would ultimately give me the endorsement. So the people that I supported on the top of the statewide ballot, they advanced. I did not benefit from their coattails, which is unfortunate for me. But I also don't know the breakdown of what parts of the county that I live in voted which way. It's reasonable to suspect that if every Cox voter voted for me also, I would have won. But that might not even be accurate, especially as the mail-in ballots went 2-1 in favor of Schultz over Cox. And I did not do well on mail-in ballots at all. But I did end up getting over 1,000 votes. My goal was to get 2,000 votes. 1,600 would have been a more reasonable winning threshold, but I ended up getting over 1,000. I finished second. There was 5 candidates. I had 0 name recognition going in, so 0 name ID. At least 2 candidates I went up against had high name ID, and I edged out one of them who, in my opinion, overperformed, but he overperformed because he had high name ID. And the other one, who had exceedingly higher name ID, would end up winning. He had the establishment backing. The way I would put it is he performed metaphorical fellatio on our rhino sheriff. And, he had the backing of the establishment. He was the establishment golden boy. He didn't run a very vigorous campaign, but nonetheless, no one really showed up to vote on election day. Generally speaking, 30% of Republicans, or 30 to 40% of Republicans, show up for primary elections. And we might have fallen under 30% despite the fact that early voting had record numbers. So early voting had record numbers, yet despite that, I didn't benefit because turnout was still low overall. So when turnout's low, establishment candidates win. When turnout is high, conservatives can win. So that's just a general rule of thumb. And just across the board, it's not just me. I'm not a unique case of butthurt here, and I'm not butthurt. I'll talk about how I'm feeling later. But let me just establish the facts before I establish how I feel about the facts. The conservatives got trounced where I lived. I'll talk about the school board slate first. So we have a very well-organized school board slate. Where I live, Carroll County, was very ahead of the game when it came to being active, having a ground game for a school board, a solid school board. We actually had the best school board in the state of Maryland. So, and we have a well-organized school board slate to, there's 3 open seats, so we have 3 candidates running, and they lost. They came in 4th, 5th, and 6th place in the primary election. Now, they will advance to the general election, but in a county that has about 35% Democrat voters and more Republican voters, this was not a good performance. This was, in fact, a very pitiful performance from our well-organized, well-funded school board slate. So that's a disappointment. Along the lines of the delegate races, which were highly contested. We had 8 candidates running for 3 seats, playing musical chairs. We had 2 really solid conservative candidates that I voted for. One of them absolutely is in 6th place. The other one, and this race, again, Maryland elections are a joke. This race has not been called yet because mail-in ballots will determine the 3 seats. But and let me just do a quick side note on the candidate that I lost to. He is a bit of a man-child who lives in his dad's house. He's 9 years older than me, so not particularly old himself, but he has 0 responsibilities. The only thing he takes care of are 2 rat dog chihuahuas, and that's not exactly an adult. That's not my definition of an adult. My personal opinion is he can't make it in the private sector, so he needs this. I can make it in the private sector. I paid for all this. None of this is funded by Evangelical Dark Web, except maybe this banner behind me. That's funded by Evangelical Dark Web, and this shirt that I wear is funded by Evangelical Dark Web. But basically everything else you see in this video is funded by myself and my actual job. So that being said, Evangelical Dark Web doesn't pay the bills around here, but you can support Evangelical Dark Web. I'd appreciate that. Anyway, that just goes to show that, I can make it in the private sector. He can't. I have a wife, 2 kids. He has none of that. And I own a house. He lives in his dad's house despite being mid-30s. And it's not like he wants to, it's that he probably can't make it in the private sector. So, with that said, establishment Golden Boy candidate 1. We have a third outstanding seat in the delegate race that has yet to be called. A conservative candidate could win that. We have a solid conservative candidate, who came to my events. I handed out her stuff. And also a Dan Cox endorsed candidate. She has not, that race has not been called, but the mail-in ballots could mean that the candidate that I'm running to replace, who's a complete rhino, this guy openly supports gun control, and at a candidate forum, kind of when Joe Biden blaming gas companies for oil prices, he could end up winning this third seat, which would be a complete embarrassment for the county that we just elected a pro-gun control candidate. So that's an embarrassment waiting to happen. Otherwise, in the commissioner seats, we went from a 4-1 Rhino block to potentially a 3-2 conservative majority, which is pretty good. I don't get to be a part of that majority, but, I'm glad the majority happened. And largely, this majority happened because only one establishment candidate really lost. And that race is yet to really be called, but the mail-in ballots have not favored... the mail-in ballots seem to have extended the lead of this one candidate who is it's kind of a unique situation in which a candidate was both endorsed by the teachers union, the evil teachers unions, and the most conservative activist groups. So the activists and the teachers unions agreed on this particular candidate, and I agreed with that particular candidate as well, because the establishment, the other parts of the establishment backed the opponent. So the teachers union doesn't get it all wrong in these local elections. They don't get it all wrong. So that being said, a 3-2 conservative majority, and one of those conservatives was unopposed, the most conservative. I'll have to talk to him about how he's going to have to be the leader of this group, because the other two aren't going to be leaders, in my opinion. They're reasonable people, but he's going to have to be the leader. He ran against a paper candidate. He was unopposed. I can't believe he was unopposed. There weren't enough craven opportunists for an open seat. And then additionally, another guy who had keynote my keynote a fundraiser that I did as well. He was the president of the school board, and he ran for county commissioner. He crushed his race by like 20 points. He was fought by the establishment. The establishment was a little bit more split on that race. Certain factors of the establishment backed him. Certain factors, the factors that specifically backed my own opponent, backed his opponent as well. So I'm going to count that as a win for the good guys, especially since the people that endorsed me also endorsed him. So the conservative activists endorsed this candidate, and they won that one. So the conservatives won 3 out of 5 seats. So good news there. So I'm not butthurt. I'm really not. Carroll County needed me more than I needed Carroll County. And I guess the only thing that I'm really upset about is like time and money lost, but I'm being encouraged a lot. Like, a lot of people think I did really well. It's my first time running. I got 27% of the vote and falling because of mail-in ballots. And I came in second in a wide open field, despite my age and other disadvantages I might have had. So I'm being encouraged by that. I don't know if I have any 2026 ambitions to run for any office. But otherwise, I didn't do bad. And I at least can say that. I can at least say that I worked hard. I didn't do a bad job. It is disappointing not to have won, but I got a lot of other things I can do. So let's talk about the other things that I want to do with my life, with my time. So one of those things is that uh, my wife and I are going to do something, some sort of investment or something. We're going to do a major project. Uh, Maybe I'll talk more about that in a future. Secondly, Evangelical Dark Web is getting ramped up. I used a lot of funds from Evangelical Dark Web to fund the campaign. Just want to be honest about that in case you guys, this isn't a charity organization, by the way. And I don't market myself as a charity organization. This is a news gathering and Christian commentary business here. So this is not, in my opinion, 501c3 eligible. I also make partisan endorsements, which would also make me not eligible for 501c3, nor do I want that. Anyway, that being said, but otherwise, I'm going to invest heavily from the money that Evangelical Dark Web gets from ad revenue and subscription revenue is going to get invested into Evangelical Dark Web to kind of help raise awareness for what this channel is. So I plan on doing a trailer for the channel that's in the works. I just had sunburn, which kind of delayed my filming of the rest of it. And I think I'm going to do more live streams now that I have more free evenings. So I like live streaming, bringing on guests and something like that. I more guests. I can bring on some guests. I'm thinking I'm doing a live stream this Thursday. So definitely subscribe so you don't miss that. If you stuck around this long, you must be a real follower. But anyway, and then other projects that I want to launch that will be related to Evangelical Dark Web. Like I'm going to get back into doing some more writing, and I'll have some announcements along those lines. I had to put a lot of that stuff down for the campaign, but it will be nice to get back on the saddle on these types of activities that I do. So anyway, thank you for listening this long. My name's Ray. This is the Evangelical Dark Web. Like I said, I made reference to subscription revenue. If you want to support Evangelical Dark Web, you can head on over to evangelicaldarkweb.org/join. And that's in the description below. And you can become a subscriber for as little as $5 a month and help out the channel. So anyway, my name is Ray. This is the Evangelical Dark Web. Have a blessed day. I will catch you on the next one.